G'day folks, Scott here. Welcome to another video. Today I'm reviewing Alien Covenant. Now over the last week you may or may not have seen that I've done my series of Alien reviews for all the previous Alien movies leading from Alien 1 right through the terrible Alien vs Predator movies and Prometheus in my anticipation for the release of Alien Covenant. You know, obviously I'm a big fanboy for this series, and you know, the reality is I've liked these movies less and less as time goes on. I still rate Prometheus higher than probably Alien Resurrection and both the Alien vs Predator movies, but nothing's topped those first two movies, and you know, I'm starting to realize that nothing ever will. I'm going to do something a little different than what I've done previously with this review video today. There's going to come a point in this video where I'm going to stop and fully warn you that everything from that point on is going to be very heavy with spoilers. I don't ordinarily do that, but I figure I've got a bit to say about this, and it's hard to say anything about it without actually spoiling things. So, you know, it'll reach a point where I'll bring up a warning on screen, and from that point, if you don't want to know anything, you should just bail and come back and, you know, watch the rest of this after you've seen the movie. As I keep harping on about, I saw this thing with no trailers, no footage, no story synopsis. I had my guesses about what it was going to be and where it was going. And unfortunately, when that first trailer dropped last year sometime, a few Instagram pages that I'd followed that were, you know, Alien fan sites dumped some photos the very first day that trailer went up that I just couldn't unsee. So there were a few elements, you know, little photos and images and things sort of spoiled for me. But overall, I did a pretty good job of avoiding it going in. So if you're in that sort of mindset and you just want a yay or nay on this thing, I'd probably say yay. Like, I liked the movie. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. It's pretty good. I think it's a step in the right direction. I probably kind of in some ways put it on par with Prometheus, maybe a little bit higher, because it goes more back to those horror roots at least. It's kind of a mix of Prometheus and the original Alien, both aesthetically and in its content. It's certainly a return to horror. Like, there were very few horror elements in Prometheus, and not much in the way of gore and violence, whereas this is the goriest Alien movie, and the violence is intense. It's pretty good. So, yeah, if you want my just yes or no answer on this, I think yes. Like, it's worth seeing at the cinema for the fact that it's a big budget spectacle Hollywood movie with tons of money behind it, some pretty cool special effects, some really extreme gore for its rating. And for that alone, you know, it's better than half the shit you see in cinemas nowadays. So, you know, go see it. Okay, so from this point on, I am going to be going into pretty heavy spoiler territory, even past what's shown in the trailers. So here is your warning right now. We are getting into spoiler territory. So you've had adequate time to stop watching this video. So here we go. The story in this movie follows the events of Prometheus, 10 years after the story ends. Having watched the trailers and things today, there were a few like promotional videos that Ridley Scott had done in the lead up to this that were actually really good. One of them I would recommend watching before you see the movie was called Last Supper, and that gave you an introduction to the crew. Now, ironically, I think that introduced the crew to you better than the movie did. Watching it afterwards, I'm like, I kind of really wish I'd seen this before I'd seen the movie, because yeah, that really sort of, their characters unfolded a lot better there than they did in the way they're introduced. That was possibly one of my issues with the film, is the fact that the crew are mostly forgettable. I don't really know a lot of the actors in there. Like, I'd seen them in bits and pieces before, but I just got back from the cinema. I haven't really gone and researched actors' names and things like that. Danny McBride was surprisingly good in it. I only know him from comedies, you know, Tropic Thunder and whatnot. And I expected that he was just going to be there for comedic relief, which concerned me. I thought they were going back to sort of the Alien Resurrection style of things, which they didn't. He was definitely a wise ass, and he definitely had a few funny moments in there, but it was also a really dramatic role, and he handled it well. He was really good. But, you know, the star of the show for this, just like in the previous movie for me, was Michael Fassbender. He was great. Now, again, spoiler territory here. Michael Fassbender plays the ship android on the Covenant, whose name is Walter, and he's a much newer generation of the same model of android that David was in the original Prometheus. And Fassbender also plays David in this movie. There's a really cool intro scene, actually, that has David with Guy Pearce, who played, you know, Wayland in the original, in Prometheus, who was the man who had made David and had designed these androids. And they have this, you know, interesting scene where, you know, David's asking where he came from, and Waylon's like, well, I made you, and he's like, well, if you made me, how does it you die and I don't? And you could see that sort of tension begin, and what had driven Wayland to invest all this money in the Prometheus expedition and to want this sort of immortality and to, fear death. So I like that they were, still following on from that theme. One of the other videos that I was mentioning earlier that has a fill-in, leading up to this movie, not featuring footage that's in the movie, is what had happened with David and Elizabeth Shaw after they took off at the end of Prometheus in the engineer's spaceship and flew off to the engineer's home world. Because if you remember at the end of Prometheus, they said, the coordinates of their home world are there, I know how to get there, let's go do that, I want to ask them, what they were doing. Now, somehow along the way, David has made the decision that this is about, almost like revenge. I find it interesting with David having conversations with Walter in this movie where Walter talks about the fact that David, being the first of his type, had too much free speech, too much free thinking, too much will, and that was weeded out of these androids as they went on. They were superior in other ways, but they were more controlled and more inhibited. So David had made the decision to take this ship that was full of all those canisters from the original movie that the engineers had intended to send to Earth and to eradicate humanity. David takes that and eradicates the engineers. It was an interesting scene, and it's in the trailers, but it was kind of a bummer with the fact that I would have liked to have known more about the engineers' culture. This is set on their world. Now, I had a friend earlier who had seen it going, there's kind of weird how the ship was crashed, yet in another scene, like in a flashback, you see him like fly in and he knows what he's doing. My thinking on that, because it's not really well explained in the movie, was that David had crashed the ship on purpose after committing his nefarious act and sent off this distress signal that Elizabeth Shaw had recorded in the ship as a way of him hoping to lure humans in so that he could, do his master plan. Now again, we're talking full spoilers here, so, you've been adequately warned. What David has done over those 10 years is researched and messed around with that black liquid that had, infected Charlie and inevitably created the creature at the end of the Prometheus movie. And he'd been mixing that and deciding how he could utilize that mixed with human DNA to get to something closer to our traditional xenomorph. He'd been testing and creating different strains of it, and even made an egg, which was another odd thing with the story to me, like having an egg before the chicken, kind of, except the chicken being a queen alien. Like, it's weird that he made that first, but there's facehuggers in this. It's another thing that kind of shits me is the facehugger thing was already established, with me complaining about it over the course of all the other Alien movies, that there's this massive inconsistency from the time of, impregnation or infestation, whatever you want to call it, to the time that the alien was coming out of people. And, sometimes it was taking a long time, sometimes it wasn't. It's ridiculous in this. It seemed like 20 minutes or half an hour or something from the time this guy gets facehuggered to the time something comes out of him. And what comes out of him is basically this statue here. That's a fully formed alien as opposed to the snake-like chest burster that's come out of the aliens in the original movies, which was kind of jarring and different. They don't really explain. I guess the species is changing as time goes on, and that's the first iteration of it, but it comes out, able to walk and do its thing like straight away. Now, the one thing that I will give this movie, like I said earlier, it's going back to more of a horror theme for this series, which is great, is when I reviewed Alien 3, I really made a point of saying that was the last time that the alien was vicious, that it was just a feral dog and just like destroyed folks. And after that, the aliens became more lumbering, stalking, kind of like slow, methodical things, which I was never really a fan of. This is going back to full-blown Cujo. These things are mental and just like attack on sight, and it's really good. There's two species of alien in this movie. One of those species being more like a traditional xenomorph. The other one is called the neomorph. And that's more like what came out of the engineer at the end of Prometheus, like that thing that was called the Deacon. I'm not sure why, but that blue thing that came out of him. And I'm guessing the theory here is that because in this, via a spore that gets into these few different people, the creature that comes out of them, which kind of looks like the thing from Prometheus, but it has a pale white skin and more ghostly features, and that thing's just fucking ferocious. And those scenes are really good. They're really violent. Like, I really dig all the alien stuff in this movie. The xenomorph does some stupid shit at the end a little bit, but overall, it's not so bad. Now, in relation to David making the egg and stuff, so there is eggs like you see in the trailer, and there is a facehugger like you see in the trailer. But it's the captain of the ship who's the idiot who, like, you know, gets done. And it's kind of weird with the fact that all this horrible shit has happened to most of his crew. And David's kind of revealed to this guy what his master plan was. Yet this guy still, you know, when an egg is opened up, going, ooh, what's in there? And put his head over the thing and obviously brought about his demise. Compared to all the shit I complained about in Prometheus with the biologist and the geologist and the stupid shit that didn't make sense, there's not as much in this. Like, it's not as bad. I like more than I dislike, and I don't really hate anything about it, but I don't really love anything about it either. Like I said, I think my current status, having just seen it, would be that I put it around Prometheus, just above Alien Resurrection, but still not to those original three, I don't think. I think I'll need to see it again to really sort of make my mind up on that, but it was well made, it was beautifully shot. You know, some of the actors were great, some of them were just there for the ride. You know, I liked it, I didn't love it. So that's really all I've got to say. I think, you know, you should, it still deserves your money. It's better than half the shit that's in a cinema. Like, God, if you people are out there giving box office records to Fate of the Furious in droves, then this certainly deserves your money. Another thing is I like how the technology is moving more towards Alien and the Nostromo than it was in Prometheus. Like, it's still high tech compared to the Nostromo, but it's not like this shiny new laboratory kind of like top of the range model the way the Prometheus was as well. So it's kind of bridging that gap. Also, there were music themes which were kind of good and not good. Like they had a lot of I think it was Jerry Goldsmith who did the original Alien music. I had some of his themes like throughout it from the original movie. And then when they were talking about things from Prometheus, it also played some Prometheus stuff. The thing I didn't like is that David played this little tune on the flute, and he played the theme from the movie Prometheus and made it sound like it was something he had written to honor Elizabeth. And although I'm cool with the fact that, you know, given the fact that his free will, free thinking android can create a piece of music because he adores music, didn't necessarily have to be the theme music from Prometheus. I found that a bit odd. I reckon that's all I got. So yeah, go see it, and you know, if you know me, let me know what you thought of it. Next movie I'll be back to review will be John Wick, which finally comes out in Australia next week after months and months and months of the ridiculous Australian distributor waiting and holding that movie back. So although I, you know, half mind not to give them my money, I really want to see the movie, so I'm going to go see that next week, and I'll be back with a review for that. But overall, it was greater than some of the previous ones, but it still isn't up there with those original two. But it's not utter shit either. Check it out. As always, thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. I'll be back soon. Thanks again.